Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Meal Prep Monday Kitchen at Jeff. As you guys know, and hopefully you know, this week is all about gut health and probiotics, and we're looking at supporting the immune system, as well as all the other benefits that go along with it. So this week we've teamed up with the guys at Cipla again and in Tyro. You might see a little bit more of it, the different probiotic options that you got, and you've heard me speak about probiotics and the roles and the benefits that it can play in terms of supporting your health, some health goals. And one of the reasons probiotics have become important in terms of taking them is because we don't get much in the form of a natural probiotic, a natural bacteria from the food we eat anymore, because fermented food is less common these days. So it doesn't have to be. I'm going to talk you through it in the next couple of minutes while we do something here as a food form of probiotics. And I'm doing some sauerkraut and some kimchi. It's pretty easy. The hardest part is waiting a couple of days for it to get ready, slicing and dicing, getting a few things going, playing around with some flavors, and getting your own ferment started. So swipe in, let me know who's all here, how you guys are doing, what's happening. Hopefully, if you're up north country, you guys are keeping safe. If you're down south, hopefully you guys are keeping warm. So it's a hell of a start to the week. And we'll rather think about all the good things. So if you're on a challenge series, you're into week 2. If you on the rest of the challenges, today was day 1, or is day 1. So hopefully you guys are flying and getting ready to rumble and everything's in place. This Wednesday, we've got Jeff Cook as well, and one of the ingredients is sauerkraut, because we're doing a pre and probiotic power bowl. So you can grab your own if you want to, or you can make it. So if you want to get it together, Wednesday will be just on time. It's around 3 days when you might use it for the first time. So we'll be maybe a little short on it, but you can have a crack at making your own in preparation for Wednesday. Just going to say, how's it? Trevor's said hello. Pat Governor, how are you doing? Amy, good afternoon to you too. Amisha, hello to all. Pat, yeah, you guys are living in limbo in KZN. My folks up in Maritzburg sent me some videos today of all the pillaging and looting and burning and nonsense that's going on there. So just hope everyone's keeping safe. Ava, how are you doing? Hopefully you guys are keeping warm in Pinelands. Pat did your Best of Me session with John and Jules. Brilliant. So day 1 on the Best of Me challenge, just super. Hopefully we've got a few of our winter warmer challenges here as well, and you've had your first session today. You would have seen me struggling away in the first one. It's been epic. It's great. So the challenge is off to a flying start, which is super. All right. So I'm going to jump into it. We're doing sauerkraut and kimchi because fairly similar. They're both cabbage based. And the only thing that varies is, the cabbage can technically be 2 different types of cabbage, but the one gets a bit of flavor, the one's super simple. And when you're playing around with your own kind of fermentation journey, you might start with cabbage as sort of the first place to do it. Or if you go back and check the DIY yogurt's a fermented food. Another good, easy place to start. So fermentation, something that we don't use that much anymore because we've got access to food. So as a preserving technique, it's became less common. And all the value that came with consuming some fermented foods and getting those natural probiotics, the good bacteria that helps your gut flourish, has diminished. So now we actually need to make a concerted effort to do it. So we can go seek out some yogurt that's still got some live probiotics, some sauerkraut that's got some live probiotics, or kimchi or kefir, or all these other things that are starting to get a little bit more popular. We can cover our bases with a probiotic supplement like Tyro. And what you'll see, one of the things on the label there, is called lactobacillus. That is the main strain of bacteria that's often present in fermented foods. You get multiple different strains of them, hundreds and thousands of different ones. But essentially what you're doing when you're fermenting is getting that bacteria to grow. You create the environment for it. And as that grows more and more, the probiotic content of it increases. The salt in there acts as the preservation technique. And you can have something like cabbage that ends up lasting six months or so. So that's kind of the theory behind some of it. One of the benefits being immune function, and we're talking to that through winter, doing things, particularly when we're stressed, training harder, maybe following a calorie deficit, the gut becomes compromised. We want to do whatever we can. So getting a good source of fermented foods is going to help with that. All right. So quite simply, let me start with a sauerkraut. What it is, shredded cabbage. Simply, all you add to that is salt. That's all it actually needs. It gets a massage with some salt. If you want, you can add some flavor, caraway seeds, right, which you can see in this little one here. Doesn't have to be in there, but the main thing is salt. It's going to get a little massage. The natural liquid kind of comes out of it. It goes into a jar, and we let that chill out for 3 days plus. It'll just start to break down a little bit. The natural bacteria that's already present on the vegetables essentially will just grow in number. And that's what happens during the fermentation process. All right. So we can start with that. We might as well. And while we're doing that, I'll talk you through the difference with kimchi. So sauerkraut, I've got a sort of a half a medium head. I used half for the kimchi and half for the sauerkraut. The difference between, while I'm just on it, the cabbage, apart from possibly using a different one in kimchi, you slice this as thin as possible. So you just want to shave it, send it through the food processor. You can see how thinly sliced that all is. So that's about half a head of cabbage. And it gets 1 tablespoon of kosher salt. Okay, now kosher salt is just the salt. It really alludes to the salt size. It was used in koshering things. So when you see kosher salt on the shelf, what it really means is just between like the really fine stuff and the very coarse stuff. So I didn't have any. I just took some coarse salt and ran it through the NutriBullet grinder for a couple of seconds, so that it's kind of floury looking, but not as fine as the stuff that you've got in your sort of typical table salt. So in here, all that is the salt with the cabbage, and it gets a massage. All right, so nice little finger and forearm workout, and you're just going to break it down a little bit until some of the natural water fluids start coming out of that. So you should see it starts happening, but you're going to massage it for about 5 minutes. So it is a good workout and an opportunity for us to talk about what's sort of going on. Once we've got through that, we're going to add some cumin seeds to it, stick it in a preservation jar, a console jar, a jam jar, or any kind of thing that is clean, just to let it ferment for the next little while. Important thing on that clean, make sure everything's clean. So you can see I'm wearing some gloves just because I don't, even washing my hands, I want the bacteria that was essentially already on here and the salt and a clean bowl to be the only thing that's kind of got a role to play. And the jars, make sure that they are nice and clean as well. And everything just needs to be clean when you're doing anything in the fermentation space. Go back and have a look at the DIY yogurts. Really one of the best things I think you can also do when you're starting your fermentation journey. Make your own yogurts. So simple. All you need is a little bit of yogurt that has some live cultures in it, and some milk. It's all about controlling temperatures from there and getting it going on its own. And you can have your own source of probiotics daily. And when you get to the last little bit of the yogurt that you're on, you make another batch. Super simple. You can strain it and you make your own Greek yogurt. So I really think it's a good place to play in when you're in the kitchen. All right. So you should be able to see it's starting to glisten. The liquids are all coming out of there. So it's only, I'm going to do it for another minute. You just want it to start breaking down slightly. And then we're going to stuff it in a jar, weight it down, and cover it, and go from there. Now, you saw how finely this was all sliced. Kimchi, a little bit different. Apart from the flavor, we get a little 1 or 2 more veg in there, but it's nice and sort of chunky. So what I did is I cut my cabbage in half, finely sliced the one half, and then the other just made some nice chunks. You can see it in the corner of view there. It just needs to sit in a little bit of water to start off with. So salt and water, and I'll run you through what was going on there as soon as I've got this into a jar. All right. And sauerkraut got a bit of a bad rap because it was, something you just got in a tin or a jar, and it was often not so great. But make your own. You'd be surprised. And cabbage, one of those things that's always around. You can get it pretty sort of economically as well. You can do some red, you can do some white. You've often seen the coleslaw on our recipes or menus. Do a coleslaw, and before it goes to waste, use all the rest of the cabbage to go into some sauerkraut. Now going into winter, instead of the coleslaw, stir fries are going to be sort of maybe the flavor of the day, and cabbage works superbly in obviously a stir fry. Got so much it does cook down to nothing, but buy a little bit extra and make your own. Right, so into my jar, I'm just going to stuff. Wait, I forgot a step. I'm going to put my caraway seeds in first. Okay, so that's just there for flavor. You don't have to put them in. I quite like the flavor of it and the smell of it as soon as that goes in there. So you're just going to get a nice sort of pickling flavor from it. All right. All good, super simple and easy. Michelle with Winter in Full Force. Hope to see a winter soup session soon. So we've done a couple. Tony did a couple a few weeks ago. There are obviously loads on the app as well, different options. But you know what? Never enough. So let's put another one in, because coming up with different soup ideas and ways to just do something. It was about most probably a year ago, one of the very first Jeff Eds for our Meal Prep Mondays. We were doing lunch in a jar, and one of the things I did was kind of soups, some ideas around that. So these mason jars have been kicking around since then, because you guys will know how much I love a mason jar by now. Okay, so that's in there. That's all the nicely massaged cabbage. And we're just going to really push it down as much as we can. Okay, and the best thing to do is weight it down. So over the next couple of days, some of that liquid is going to sort of seep out, and it's its own liquid that it's going to ferment in. Every day, you're just going to punch it down. If you've got a weight, so you can use like another mason jar, and you stick that on top, so that you can fill that with some marbles or I've just filled it with some water or something, and you can just make sure there's always that weight on top. So you might be able to see as I push, a little bit of the liquid coming to the top. So that's beautiful. And literally once a day, just going to push it down. Going to cover it with some cheesecloth, so the chojos can't get in, and just the elastic band, which hopefully Greer's not watching because it's a hairband, because we don't have any elastic bands. So you can use some twine, some string or something, and I just hijacked one of the hairbands to keep that in place. So that's what it's going to do. It's going to chill out here on the counter. And from about 3 days on, you can start using that. The longer you leave it, the more flavor that's going to kind of develop. And you can kind of have it at will. Once it's got to a point of it's kind of how you like it, stick it in the fridge, and that'll slow the fermentation, and you can keep it for up to 6 months. You can get a lid on there and keep it going. Simple. All right. Michelle would be epic. Cool. We'll do some more soup sessions. Just want to see if there are any other chat that came in. Guys, just saying hi. Sarah Jane, how are you doing? Karen, yes, it is very icy and wet in Cape Town, but miserable. Beautiful. All right, so kimchi. What's different here? You saw how finely I had shaved the cabbage for the sauerkraut. Well, that took me 10 minutes, and we've got some sauerkraut that's going to be bubbling away in a couple of days. And that's the sort of, they're these cubes, they're nice and chunky. So cutting a cabbage in half, quarter it, eighth it, and then just dice it so that you've got nice little bits of it. I've julienned some carrots, which you'll see there. And in here, just covered it with a third of a cup of salt and some water. So this has just been kind of sitting away and brining for about an hour, which is all it needed. And what I'm going to do is drain that out and create a little paste that's going to flavor it. All right. So into the paste, you can kind of vary what you do. The main sort of ingredient that goes into it is red pepper, powdered red pepper. So if you live near a Chinese or Asian store and you can get Korean red pepper powder, fantastic. Otherwise, just ground red peppers. You can get a little bit of cayenne in there just to spice it up if you want to. But that's pretty much the main flavor that goes into it. So you can just kind of get it in with that. A couple of spring onions that I'll show you. I'm adding a few other aromatics and things just to get some nice flavor and all the other things we've spoken about, sort of supporting your immune system and the types of veg that you can use for that. So I've got 2 cloves of garlic. All right. I have half a thumb of ginger. I've got a nice big teaspoon of miso paste. All right. You've obviously seen me use this. This is always in the fridge for me, and another fantastic fermented product. So a little bit more in terms of probiotics in there as well. And then I've got some spring onions, and we're going to use the whites and the greens, but just separately, that I'll show you now. All right. So chopped cabbage that are diced sort of into nice chunks, julienned carrots, covered in water with about a third of a cup of salt. Leave that for an hour, and then we're going to drain it off. While that sits, you can kind of make your paste. All right. So we've got some garlic that's going to go in. Okay, so you can do this in a pestle and mortar, or you can do it in your food processor. You just want it to be nice and kind of mushy. It can still be fairly fine. Almost batter consistency. We're going to get that in. Okay. So I'm just going to chop it nice and fine and then stick it in a pestle and mortar because it makes a hell of a noise for you guys when I use the food processor. So that's the garlic and ginger. And you'll remember talking about immune function, 2 superfoods that we can eat a little bit more of during winter, both help to support the immune function. Then our spring onions, okay, if you can see here, I'm going to take the whites off and they're going to join this crew. And the greens we're going to chop up to add in a little bit later. Okay, so just going to get them nice and fine. Okay. And that's going to go into your food processor or into your pestle and mortar just to mush around and start forming a lovely paste with the miso and the ground pepper. All right, so that's just there. And you should you'd smell it. It smells amazing. The aromatics and the little spice from the pepper and that's what's going to flavor our kimchi. And that also should, about from 3 days, it'll be ready. And again, you can kind of keep tasting it and see where you like it. So if, after a week, it's, perfect for you, it's still a little fresher. And that kind of goes quite nicely as like a little spoonful on top of things. The older stuff you can maybe cook with. It all just depends. It gets a lot stronger the longer you leave it. All right. So I've got a beautiful paste forming there. Smells good. Smelling great. Okay, and then I'm going to drain kimchi. Get all the water out. There we go. So that's the cabbage and carrot mix. And same again, we're going to give it a little bit of a massage with our paste that we've got in there. And another reason why the gloves are going to help here. One, because it's going to be very spicy, and obviously you're going to touch your eyes, and you're going to leave some spicy pepper. It just keeps things nice and clean as well. So getting all those flavors in there, similarly just going to massage it for a couple of minutes. Still going to be a little bit crunchy, but starts getting slightly limp. Just want to get all of those flavors and everything in there. The tops of the spring onions, the greens that we had, I'm also just going to chop them quickly and stick them in there. So the whites went into the paste, and the greens we're just going to add in to there. Okay. And then same as before, we're going to stick it into our mason jar and let it ferment away. And every day, just push it down. You've got to make sure it's nice and tight so you get all the air out that's in between the veg. Okay. Okay, it's going to get richer and deeper in color over the next few days. Really smelling amazing. Lovely spicy. It's got my mouth watering and my nose running. Okay, so into the jar. Let's get it all in there. Make sure you're squashing it down. Okay. And then any liquid that came out from the massaging, there's loads of flavor in there, so make sure you get that into the jar as well. Okay, so push it down, right down. And that's beautiful. Right. So it's as compact as you can make it. Really push it down in there. And then same, every day, you're just going to take the cheesecloth off, push it down again, make sure that it's kind of starting to sit in its own liquid, and you'll start to see it bubbles. That's the fermentation that's happening. That's the natural sugars getting broken down and creating more bacteria. All of those lovely probiotics. And that's number 2. So super simple, quick, easy way to get started on your own journey with some ferments. From ingredients, for the most part, we've just got kicking around. So we've got the sauerkraut going, We've got the kimchi growing, and we're going to give those 3 days. I'll post kind of what it looks like as we go, and you'll be able to see. Nothing can really go wrong. Sometimes you get a little bit of like scum mold forming on top, which is still fine. It doesn't matter. You can just skim it off, and you keep going. Make sure it's pushed down. Make sure as it releases its own liquid, it's sitting below that. And so you've got to squeeze it down, keep it covered, keep checking on it, and then taste it from 3 days on until it's at a point that you kind of like what it's looking like. So we've got those two lovely bad boys, which we're going to stick here. Being winter and being colder, fermentation might just be a little bit slower, just because room temperature is a little bit down. But that's fine. We've got time on our side. So nice way to put into some jars your own source of probiotics. And if you can, once it's ready, once a day, just add it to something. So it goes great on top of like our little power bowl we're going to do on Wednesday night, with your eggs in the morning. A little bit of kimchi for some spice is great. Have it as a side, as in when you want. Nice way to not worry about having to supplement, because we can do it from a food-based source. So hopefully that gives you a couple ideas. We've got a few things. We can get started with yogurt. Go check that one out. Have a crack at some sauerkraut. It's really easy. And kimchi, just slightly different because we've added some flavors in there, but not too bad. All right. Guys, I hope for our Meal Prep Monday, you got a couple ideas out of all of that. And the rest of the week, we're focusing on all of this, on gut health. So join me tomorrow night at 6:30. We've got a Jeff Ed with Prof. He's going to come and join us, and we're going to talk through probiotics and gut health and immune function and how it's all kind of ties in. Wednesday, we've got our pre and probiotic power bowls, and we are hooking up with Entaro all week to get the message across how important it can be, how we can do it from food, and when we need to, what the role supplements play. All right. Guys, have a fabulous Monday. Get the week started on the right foot. Get some meal prep done. Get everything in place. Train hard and keep warm, keep safe. And I'll see you guys all on Wednesday. Just for now.